Today I'm here with a special guest. I'm honored to be able to interview this man. I've known him for about a decade now.
You're there,
yeah, and seen his progression. So for the game members and everybody, man, we just want to thank you for allowing us to be here to do this interview.
Yeah.
You know, so for those that don't know, right? Give us your story, man. Like, you know, you from 53206, right? You ain't supposed to be mayor, bro. You know what I mean? That's not the expectations coming out of 53206, right?
I think that's part of the reason why there's only one mayor who's ever been from 53206.
Yes, sir.
That being me. My story is not dissimilar to, many people from 53206 and many other challenged zip codes in Milwaukee. I was born and raised here in the city. Went to Milwaukee Public Schools. All the things that you know, Sean.
Yeah,
the things that everybody from 53206 have known and seen over time. I've experienced those same sort of things. You know, whether it's moving around, a ton. I went to 6 different elementary schools.
Okay.
Because we moved around so much. Not knowing where your food's going to come from, seeing violence and gunshots and domestic violence. I've seen it all. I know those challenges, but I was not dissuaded from working really hard in order to get ahead. So I remember when I was in 4th grade, I was sitting on the porch, the place where we lived at, on 21st Street, east side of the street, between Wright and Clark. And I thought to myself, I was looking around one summer and I said, hey, I want more for myself, more for my family, more for my community. And I said I was going to pull my pants up and try to work hard, and do better. Fortunately, just a few years after that, and applying, that new way to go about my daily living and my education, I was recruited to this program that was run by the YMCA here. A program was called Sponsor a Scholar. It still exists with the Boys and Girls Club now, but it was with the Y then, and the program had 2 main goals. One was to get young people from low-income families in Milwaukee Public Schools to go off to college, and be the first person in your family to get a college degree. And that's what happened with me. I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, our state's flagship university. The other part of that same program was to get young people involved in community service and giving back and helping. And so I was helping seniors to rake leaves and shovel snow and feed the homeless and doing all that stuff. And I fell in love with the community service aspect of it. A couple of months after I got involved with that program, 9/11 happened. Okay. And 9/11 affected everybody who was alive at that time. You know where you were, what, how it impacted you. For me, when I was, a 14-year-old kid, seeing that, I remember watching President George W. Bush go to the World Trade Center and try to bring people together during that trying time for our country. And for whatever reason, and I don't know why, but for whatever reason, my desire to serve and help people that I fell in love with doing years ago at the YMCA, or with my time at the YMCA rather, it married with the example that I saw President Bush doing. Okay. And I said, I could have a career in government where I get up to help people every single day, like I fell in love with doing at the Y. Okay. And that ultimately is how I got here. So I stayed involved in service and giving back. My first spring break in college was to New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, helping people who lost everything there. Did some service work in Chile, in South America.
Really?
I didn't know that. Yeah, I was down in South America for a little bit, and over in London, working with at-risk young people. Did a internship with the YMCA in New York City as well, and decided to come back here and stay involved. Ran for office, lost a couple times, but stayed at it, and now we're here.
I didn't know you had been through all that. Well, if I didn't know, I'm quite sure a lot of other people didn't know. Which leads me into my next question, right? Because people don't know what the mayor does. Mm-hmm. They think the mayor is over laws. You can change laws, right? So this is your opportunity, right, to really explain and share what your roles are and how your roles differ from those of Crowley, because for some reason they think that y'all do the same thing.
Yeah. I think many times people think that I have this power where I can just
do
that,
yeah.
And then automatically, things change, and that's just not reality.
Okay.
If that were the case, then we probably would still be having mayors that we had 20 years ago or more than that, because they would have been able to solve challenges by a simple snap of the fingers. It just doesn't work that way. For instance, in terms of public safety, and I'm bringing up public safety because it's something that we work on a lot out of my office in conjunction with the police chief, the fire chief, and so many others. Our violence prevention office of community wellness and safety, so many other partners as well. But as it relates to public safety, when somebody does something bad out there, when somebody causes death, harm, or destruction in the city, I always say that those folks should be held to account. They should. And I think that the vast majority of people in Milwaukee agree with that statement, right? And when I turn on the news or read the paper, and if somebody's family member has been hurt and they're releasing balloons in the air, they're calling for justice.
Yes.
Right? So they want the same thing that I'm talking about. They want for people to be held accountable for their bad behaviors. Now, there are a couple of different cogs in the machine to get to that outcome. One of the cogs in the machine is the city's responsibility. The city's responsibility is the Milwaukee Police Department, right? So the police department will go out and make an arrest. After the police arrest somebody and turn that person over to the authorities of prosecution over at the county or the state, our job is done.
Okay.
So people will say, "Oh, Johnson, why'd you let this bad guy out?" We didn't.
Right.
We didn't. We made the arrest. You know what I mean? So that's one example of many where people think that, I'm not, doing something, or as it relates to education. There's a lot of news, these days around.
I'm glad you brought that up. Can you explain to people, or just tell them outright that you don't control MPS?
Yeah,
they think you control MPS.
Yeah, I don't control MPS, and I think they may have that. That mindset, because in some communities the mayor does.
Yeah.
In some communities the mayor does have a direct role in education. In Milwaukee, in Wisconsin, I should say, that's not how the governance for local school districts is. It just isn't. In some places, the mayor appoints, a majority of the school board, and then the rest is popularly elected.
Okay.
Here, everybody's popularly elected. And they're popularly elected in off-cycle elections, meaning that they're not elected at the same time as mayor and common council members and city attorney and all those things. So maybe there's a little less interest, and maybe it's more difficult to pull people to the polls in those off-cycle elections. That's the way it is here. Sometimes the mayor in some other places, they directly appoint the superintendent of schools. That's just not the case here. Okay. So people think that is what happens, but it's not. I'm a proud graduate of Milwaukee Public Schools myself. I have 3 kids, all of whom attend Milwaukee Public Schools, but I don't have a direct say. That isn't to say that I've not tried to be involved in schools, and I'm not trying to do that. When I was elected to be mayor back in 2022, we set up monthly meetings with myself and the superintendent every single month, and we've been able to have some positive things come out of that relationship. And I'm interested in using this office to be a convener to have a broader conversation around education in Milwaukee, because as your viewers know, it's not just Milwaukee Public Schools, right? Yeah. There are people who send their kids in Milwaukee to schools, private schools, on public vouchers, and there's charter schools as well. So the education landscape is fractured in a sense here in Milwaukee, and it's not just MPS. It's not just MPS.
You mentioned the Common Council.
Yes.
And I was having conversations previously about the power and the power in Milwaukee, and how Milwaukee has this unique governance, right? Where there's the mayor, there's the Common Council, and y'all supposed to work together, right? And a lot of issues that the aldermen are supposed to have, people bring to the mayor's office, right? Um, how? Well, first and foremost, I need to ask, man, because I ain't got tough skin. I don't have the tough skin that you do, right? How do you deal with knowing that it's not your responsibility, right? And you've never thrown nobody under the bus, ever. You don't attack. You don't. Hey, it just rolls off, right? Share that gift, because I don't have it. I know a lot of people that don't, and a lot comes at you. A lot of spears, a lot of knives, and you carry a lot of weight for people that aren't doing what those that elected them to do should do.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, I think part of it is the fact that you
ain't got to throw nobody under the bus.
Yeah, no, I don't want you to do that. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus.
Okay.
I mean, I know that I try not to be petty.
Yes.
Right. I try not to be petty. I try not to take this personally, which sometimes can be difficult because I care about Milwaukee, right? I want the city to be the best city that it possibly can be. So it's difficult not to do that. And even if I do that, like I try to internalize things. My wife, my poor wife, I think sometimes she's like, all right, enough, because sometimes I'll just go home and vent to her. And that allows me to keep my sanity in a sense towards this. It's kind of like what they say on social media too, like don't read the comments.
Yeah.
You don't read the comments because, I mean, the haters are going to be there. They're going to hate. They're going to say what they're going to do. That's their assignment. That's their job. I'm not going to pay attention to that because I got a job to do. I'm focused on my job. I'm focused on doing what I need to do in order to move the city forward. And I don't really have time to focus in on what somebody's got to say, especially if their number one duty in this life is to be a hater. I ain't got time for it.
Okay, I like that. You talk a lot about the vision that you have for Milwaukee, right? As the first Black elected mayor, which I'm proud of, man. I've seen other mayors. Couldn't work with a lot of the other mayors, but I believe I know what you want for the city, and I'm proud of you, man.
Thank you.
I really am. As the first Black elected mayor of Milwaukee, though, what's your long-term vision for the city?
My long-term vision for the city, I want this to be a city where people choose to move to, where people choose to open businesses, where people choose to have families. I want this to be a city that is strong, that is safe, that's prosperous for everybody, no matter what neighborhood you live in. I mean, if they live in 53206, where I came up, I want them to have those same sort of opportunities. I want people to have access to good paying and family supporting jobs, because when they have those sort of things, you get to stability. Yeah. In a single word, I think that's what it is. It's stability. Okay. That's what I want, because when folks are stable in their lives, and many times that comes from a good paying family supporting jobs, it creates stability then in the lives of their kids. It creates stability in neighborhoods because folks aren't moving around so much. And when folks aren't moving around so much, then the neighborhoods are not porous, right, and the people aren't transient. And when that's not happening, then people start looking out for each other. Like, you watch your kids grow up. You know what their car looks like. You see their pets. Mm-hmm. Like, the relationship starts to become familial. Yes. And when the relationship becomes familial and neighborhoods begin to gel, they become cohesive. And when the neighborhoods become cohesive, that's how you get to the greater public safety that all of us want to see. So, and that all stems from stability, and that's what I want for the city.
Okay. Building trust between the community and local government is crucial, right? And I know that you're trying, right? But how do you plan to strengthen this trust and ensure all residents feel safe and supported? You mentioned 53206, and we know that there's certain areas that need more attention, right? And we know that the powers that be and circumstances happen, but some of these places need that attention. And what are your ideas on that? How can we strengthen that, man?
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you asked that question, especially given the fact that just this past, just wasn't last week. I think it was last week. Friday, as a matter of fact. We just launched in my administration a new Adopt a Neighborhood initiative, where we're working directly with neighborhoods, having some civic engagement that's part of the process to see what people want, see what people need, and then using the resources that we have at the city and doing the things that we are doing in a more disparate way, focusing in on a particular neighborhood, on the issues that they care about. So we're piloting it right now in the Silver City neighborhood on the south side and Alderman Zamaripa's district. And if it goes well, we want to take the show on the road and get to other neighborhoods across the city and do the same thing. So whether it's making sure that the police do some canvassing to see what concerns people around public safety, like we're going to do that. Whether it's having the fire department to go out and make sure they're making sure that there's smoke detectors in neighborhoods, we're going to do that. Whether it's the Department of Public Works coming around to spruce up the crosswalks so that vehicles have some better sense that there is a crossing for pedestrians here, we're going to do that. Whether it's changing out the fixtures of our street lights to create brighter illumination, especially at night, to curb crime at the night. We're going to do those things and focus in on a particular neighborhood in the city. And like I said, work with people directly in the neighborhoods to build that trust and have some civic engagement in the process.
You have a very diverse office. Very diverse office, right? Probably the most diverse office in the history of Milwaukee. Why did you choose to do that? Tell people why you chose to do that.
Because Milwaukee is a diverse city. This is, by my accounts, I believe, the most diverse place in the entire state of Wisconsin. It's the place where roughly 1 in 10 people who live in this state call home, the city of Milwaukee, in the city limits. And so my office reflects that diversity, whether it's men and women or Latinos or people of other stripes, whether it's in my office or in my administration. We're reflecting the diversity of this city in my administration, in this government that I have the honor to lead. I think that's important to make sure those voices are heard.
Well, that leads me to my next question too. So this is off the cuff too. Yeah, you don't go out. You don't club. You don't drink. Well,
I don't drink very often. No.
Okay.
I don't drink very often. As a matter of fact, even though I went to UW-Madison, and
they party.
That's I had some difficulty when I first went there because I'm the first person in my family to go to college.
Okay.
And it's the biggest college in the state. There's like 40,000, people that go to the school. It's basically the population of the school is similar to an aldermanic district.
Yeah,
essentially.
They have their own community, basically.
Yeah. And when I first got there, it almost seemed as if I was in one bubble, and then you have 40,000 other people in this other massive drunken bubble.
Okay.
So I spent a lot of time hopping on the Badger bus and coming back home every weekend because I just felt like I did not fit, But it was another one of those lessons like I had when I was 4th grade that I was telling you about, where I said, this is, my school. I'm not gonna change myself, but I just have to figure it out. And so then I forced myself to stay and found my friends, my people who are still really good friends to this day, and made success of it. But no, I don't go out. I don't club. I don't party. Not like that. I enjoy, the social outing and stuff like that. I don't drink very often. I did just in the past, this is where I was going with the UW-Madison thing. I just found, I think in the last year and a half, 2 years, I just found my adult beverage of choice, in the last 2 years, it was right under my nose the whole time.
And what's that, Mayor?
It's a brandy old fashioned sweet.
I like brandy old fashioned sweets. I really drink seriously.
It's the Wisconsin cocktail, and it was under my nose the whole time, and I didn't even know.
Oh, you should have talked to me about 3-4 years ago. I'd have turned you on to it.
That's what I was asking. I was like,
that's when I found out about it.
Like,
about 4 years ago.
I was asking people like, what should I drink? And they were like, drink this. Like, nah. And I tried. I was like, oh, I can do this.
Yes. Yeah. Just don't have too many. Don't have too many. You got a city to run. Me, I can have 3 or 4. And I'll be all right. I mean, how are you ensuring that development and revitalization efforts in Milwaukee are inclusive and benefit all residents, particularly those in historically underserved communities?
Yeah, so a couple of ways. I think some of the improvements that we're making to the street, like the city's own property, in terms of building out a protected bikeway network through the city, which is one of the legacy things that I'm going to leave when I leave this office.
Stop answering my questions before I ask them to, because that's one of my questions. But okay,
sorry. All right, sorry about
that. That's why you're the mayor, see, because
you got to anticipate.
You got that.
But,
right.
So we're doing that, and I think that will help to yield development in neighborhoods across the city. Because when you build that sort of infrastructure of the future city, I think it yields other development, including in neighborhoods that are outside of what I call like the prosperity neighborhoods that hug the lake, from the east side to downtown to Walker's Point to Bayview. So there's that, and then when it comes to other large scale development here. We constantly work to make sure that people who live in challenged neighborhoods get an opportunity to have a piece of the pie. We have our residence preference program that employs unemployed or underemployed people on these development projects. So for instance, when I look at the couture that's going up down the lake, I mean, a high rise, the tallest residential tower in the state of Wisconsin. People from challenged neighborhoods get the opportunity to work on that, develop skills, and then take those skills onto the next development. And I've talked about wanting to have a city that is growing, right? And so when it's growing, that means there's more construction. That means you can build like a career in building the city of the future. So we connect people with those opportunities, and they just keep on going. And it's not just the couture; it's the new tower that's going up in the 3rd Ward. It's the thing over at the Deer District. The new theater that's going up there. It was Pfizer Forum itself, some years ago. It's the Northwestern Mutual Tower, things like that. And I mean, it's even as it relates to replacing lead service lines in Milwaukee too, because I see that as a major opportunity to have people from challenged neighborhoods to get a piece of the pie. So it's all of those things together that builds that opportunity. I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is when people have the opportunity to have those sort of family supporting jobs, and they're able to look up at a skyscraper and say, hey, I built that instills pride. And then you can tell your kids, you tell your grandkids that, hey, you helped to build this city, or multiple projects, within the city. And having those family supporting jobs, that leads back to that stability that I was talking about earlier, which yields to the greater public safety that all of us want to see.
So this may seem like a question that everybody should know. They should have answers for, right? But I've heard it asked, why aren't we getting those towers in the hood, on Capitol, on Burleigh, right, on Wright, right? Why aren't those buildings going up there? Why don't we see those type of developments happening in those neighborhoods? Can you explain why?
Well,
or why not?
Yeah. Well, one, I think with the investments that we're making, again, I think it'll help to draw additional development in those neighborhoods. Two, it's a matter of zoning, right? And you don't have uses that are not compatible in neighborhoods,
right?
So of course, downtown you'll see these really tall towers rising because this is the central business district.
Every downtown is like that.
Precisely. Yeah. Precisely. But you don't necessarily see things like as big as the couture rising up in
27th
in the Rufus King neighborhood.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I mean, to answer the question about the development in neighborhoods, so we are making investments in neighborhoods with, what I was just talking about earlier with our protected bikeway network, and other things as well. But one of the other things that I've been championing is our Growing Milwaukee initiative, which is the first zoning overhaul that we've had in the city of Milwaukee in 20 years. I mean, think about this. Our zoning in this city, in a substantial way, hasn't been touched since John Norquist was mayor.
Yeah.
You remember John Norquist?
Yeah.
Right? He's taller than both of us.
Yeah.
Probably stack both of us together.
We ain't got to do that, though.
Oh, all right, okay.
Mayor Johnson, we're not going to do that. We sitting here bonding right now.
I thought we short kings. Right?
Yeah, we are, but we don't have to.
We ain't going to talk about it?
Yeah,
all right. But so when Norquist was mayor, that was the last time we had a substantial upgrade,
right?
To our zoning code. And so for me, as somebody that wants to grow the city towards 1 million people or more, we've got to have zoning to be a part of that. Okay. And so one of the things that the upgrade calls for is for along these high traverse transit routes. So think about what are the streets you mentioned before? Capitol Drive, 27th Street,
27th,
places like that. Fond du Lac, exactly. Yeah. Those would be the areas, those would be the nodes in which we would see more and increased development happening in neighborhoods throughout the city and not just here downtown.
Yeah, because, I grew up here, and I remember growing up, and we didn't have to go out the neighborhood to, enjoy ourselves, get the essentials in life. Right. So, yeah. Okay.
Well, so I'm glad you say that. I'm not throwing you a curveball, but I mean, you just said something that
I got my mitt on. I'm ready for it. I got my mitt on.
You just said something that just reminds me, because you're right, and that's the way it should be. Like, people should not have to get in a car and go outside of their neighborhood to get anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? We should be able to have the amenities that people need within the 15-minute city concept, within a 15-minute walk or bike ride from where your location is. And the more that we're able to build that up in Milwaukee, you know what that means? And if we have more density to support these places, that's why we're building up properties and stuff like that along transit routes. You have more people spending their dollars locally. And if more people are spending their dollars locally, that means more jobs for people who live in the neighborhoods. And if people are spending their dollars in the places where they live, that means less dollars are seeping out of our neighborhoods and going to other communities. That's how you build economic wealth. That's how you build a prosperous city. And that's what we're trying to do.
Okay. I was there when you said that you wanted to see Milwaukee reach 1 million people.
Yeah.
Right? That seems, like you reaching, we see people leaving, right? How are you gonna make that happen? Now, don't get me wrong, that would be beautiful.
Yeah.
Right? To have 1 million people here. But how are you gonna make it happen, man?
John F. Kennedy, when he was president of the United States, said that in time we'll send a man to the moon and bring him back safely to the earth.
Yeah.
And for some time, people were like, man, that's kind of, talk about a reach.
Right.
Talk about a reach. Yeah. Like, that's not even here on earth. That's that's out there, man.
That's outer limit type, right.
But you have big, bold ambitions and goals, and you have something that you strive for. Anybody can come into a mayor's office and say, hey, I just want to, be status quo, just keep the trains running on time. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But you got to have some direction that you want to go to as well, and I think that's important. And if you look back at Milwaukee in the past, before manufacturing bottomed out in this community, we were already on the trajectory towards 1 million people.
We were. Yeah.
We at our height, we had 740,000 people here.
Yeah.
Milwaukee was the 11th largest city in the United States, right? So it's not as if those things can't happen here. And I think the more people are exposed, you probably see this now, I certainly see it, the more people are exposed to Milwaukee when they get here, when they actually travel north of our sister city of Chicago and see that there is another beautiful, thriving metropolis with big city amenities and an easy way to get around up here, folks are blown away. So it's a matter of making sure that people get here and see it. That's a driving thing. But I'm not, lost in the fact that you said that, some people have elected to move away.
Yeah.
We have to work to make sure that we're retaining the talent that we have here as well. That's part of the effort, or part of the reason why, we've been so focused in on, not just having new places for people to live, but also bringing in good paying family supporting jobs. A big part of the reason, why people leave and young, talented, educated people leave is because they feel like they don't have an opportunity. That's why when I was on the county council, like I worked really hard to make sure that Milwaukee Tool would be able to come downtown.
Okay.
Think about this. When I was on the council, I had council members that were saying, "Oh, it's good enough for us just to have Milwaukee Tool in the region," meaning
right.
Brookfield or Muskego or Menominee Falls or someplace you can't even get to on a bus, by and large. I said, no, those jobs should be in the city of Milwaukee. Why? Because those are good paying jobs where folks are making like $75,000 a year minimum.
Yeah.
Why should we have those jobs outside of the city? We shouldn't. Those jobs should belong here and on a bus line like they are right now, and accessible to people who live here in Milwaukee. So we're growing that. And it's not just, Milwaukee Tool. I mean, you know the list of a number of places that have brought jobs, new jobs or consolidated jobs in the city. I mean, that's what's happening at Northwestern Mutual right now. They're taking their North Tower, breaking it down to the studs, and basically building up a new office from the ground that'll mirror their tower and commons, and consolidating the jobs that they have in Franklin, which if you've taken the bus out to the
I've been out there, yeah.
Like, man, that's a hike.
Yeah.
But now those jobs will be here. They'll be here. They'll be more accessible to people. So they'll be at like 2,000 jobs here. And my administration played a big role in working to make that happen. So whether it's drawing people in or retaining people with having access to good paying jobs, like those are the things that we need to do to keep growing our population.
I got a couple more questions for you. I believe this next one is gonna enlighten some other people because safety is a factor. Yes. And I know that we spoke about the safety earlier, but I've also been having conversations with many residents surrounding cameras and the use of cameras or lack of use, right? I want you to explain to our viewers why the city of Milwaukee cannot use those cameras.
Yeah, so as it relates to cameras, I mean, we use cameras all the time where we can, where legally we're able to do so. In fact, I believe it was just last year, myself and the police department, working with businesses around, we introduced this new camera system whereby people would be, businesses and individual homeowners too, via our FUSIS program, would be more easily able to upload information from their cameras directly into the police department, so that they can have more eyes and ears on the street. There are only so many police officers, but there's cameras everywhere, so we're using that to help to improve public safety. But as it relates to cameras for traffic enforcement, whether it's red light cameras or traffic enforcement cameras, we cannot do that because state law has supremacy over local law. So it's not that I have a lack of desire to do that. I would like to do that, as a matter of fact. Okay. State law says that I cannot. That's the reason why. And my thought is this, right? As I just said, there are only so many police officers. Yeah. We could use the cameras as a force multiplier. So, for instance, if somebody is running a red light, I can't have a police officer sitting at every single corner. Right. But the camera can sit there all day. The camera can let us know, and the camera can help to hold folks accountable. Yes. So if we have technology at our disposal, then why would we not use it? It's kind of like we got cell phones out here, right? Right. You see people running around here with landlines. Nobody's doing that anymore. You use the technology that you have. Yes. So I'm hopeful that at some point the state will realize that and give us the ability to use the technology that's available.
I'm going to reiterate that for you. The way it's not him. It's the state that's not allowing these laws to be changed, right? Okay. Correct. All right. So we got that. One more question, and this is, I think it's near and dear to what we do. How does your administration plan to involve community members and local organizations in developing and implementing pedestrian safety and healthy measures so that Milwaukee can grow to this number that I believe is possible? And without the proper help, though, right? Us living healthy lifestyles and being safe, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And as far as involving the community in our efforts around improving the pedestrian experience here in Milwaukee, I mean, you see a lot of the changes that are happening right now. And that's really in response to what the community has called for, right? Folks have said they're sick and tired of seeing people drive recklessly in Milwaukee. I mean, that's a danger to drivers, certainly, but it's really a danger to people who are walking, who aren't enveloped in metal in a vehicle, right? And so we're making those improvements to mitigate reckless driving. But the other thing that I'm particularly proud of, and I led on, and the council passed it, is the implementation of Vision Zero here in Milwaukee. So for us, I mean, Vision Zero is an international effort to reduce traffic deaths down to zero over the course of time. And for quite